Hello, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you all? I'm just adding everyone from the waiting room.
Morning, Maz.
Morning, Gio, how are you?
Sorry to kick you out.
No problem at all. I thought, what happened? Why am I kicked out? I was like panicking. I texted Donna, did you sign in? She said, no, I didn't.
Oh,
Then like,
no. Well, I'm here as a guest.
no problem. So let me see who can. Yes.
I'll start my video. I'll do a video check as well.
I can see Kanab,
Hi. So can I.
Ciel,
Hey.
Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Salman. How are you, brother? I can see our wonderful Satya.
Hi.
Very, very beautiful picture, I must say.
Thank you.
Salman, can you talk? I can't
Good
hear you.
morning, good afternoon.
Yeah, good morning.
I think I might be having an issue. I would be.
That's better.
No. The thing is, this system works with without headphones, so it's like I'm coming from my cell phone then.
So I'm using the report out logging details. So that's why I have been shown as report out. So you can see me as Mazharul or Maz. Sorry about that. Being a host, that's I have to do that. So we have like 4 minutes. Then we are going to start the event. I think we all are ready and everything is fine so far.
We've got this, Maz. You've got this.
Let me check if there is anyone in the waiting room.
Hello, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Hey.
How are you, sir? My teacher.
Good. How are you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. Oh, you got plenty of books. Wow, treasure.
Oh, it's only so I can pretend to look intelligent. That's the only reason.
I always buy books from different internet sites, Amazon, and I haven't got time to read them. But yeah, you looks like an intellectual.
All of the pages are empty in all of them. You know, there's nothing.
That's fine. Yeah, and if I disappear in the mid of the conversation, just don't mind because I'm somewhere else as well. So I'm just gonna join you, but sometimes I need to turn off the video.
Yeah, that's fine. And I would request all of you to just unmute yourself, and when you talk, just always keep mute, and when you talk, just unmute. That's just to avoid the further unnecessary noises. One more participant is in the waiting room.
Is my audio clear?
Yes, it's completely clear.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Donna. Admit them all.
I'll put myself on mute now so you don't hear me heavy breathing over the microphone. Can I just say to everybody who's taking part in this, thank you very much. It's so appreciated. It really is. I'll speak to everybody at the end. I'm going on mute. Have fun.
We're going to start in 2 minutes time. Just 1 more minute.
Can you do an audio to that? Or be clear?
Hi guys, I just wanted to check my audio. Am I audible?
Yes, clear, loud and clear.
All right, cool. I'll just unmute myself.
Just we are waiting for Tasnova. Yes.
I wanted to ask, like, I'm clear.
Yes, you are. Can I just
Okay.
request all our wonderful panel just to say your name so that like we can check everyone is clear, the audio check.
Hello, this is Fatima. My full name is Sayyeda Sarwat Fatima. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thanks, Fatima.
No problem at all, love. I'm just muting now.
Yeah, sure. I think who already checked it, you don't need to. Tasnuba, are you there? Tasnuba, I saw her in the waiting list. Just Prohor, are you there? I'm just waiting for two Bangladeshi panelists. So hopefully they'll be there soon. I saw Tasnuba. I don't see another, but they're trying to join maybe. However, we should start the event. I'm already 1 minute late and sorry for that. So we'll be waiting for them. Once they come, we'll just add them. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, and welcome to Soge's Lives in South Asia, Barriers and Resistance event organized by ReportOUT. I'm sure all of you know ReportOUT, but still just wanted to give you a small brief about ReportOUT. What is ReportOUT and what do they do? So ReportOUT is global SOGI, sexual orientation and gender identity human rights organization based in Gateshead, United Kingdom, established in 1920 with a team of passionate and committed volunteers. I must say that, like agree that I have been working with ReportOUT and the volunteers are the main force of ReportOUT, yes. And the trustee, both national and international uh, trustee. ReportOUT does research, monitor, document the lived experiences of Sogi people through using their global network of state-based and grassroots organization. It doesn't use traditional LGBTQI plus identity politics. They have a firm ideology that a human rights standpoint is important in advanced social changes. Please note that the event will be recorded and it will be considered as ReportOUT intellectual property, but we will not use this intellectual property without any of your consent. Just let me give you a brief idea about the event format. We are aiming to finish this event in 1 hour, but if it's required, we may increase the time 10 to 15 minutes, only if it requires. And there are 8 wonderful LGBTQI plus activists are joining us today from Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Each panel would be asked 2 questions to answer, and there would be one open question for all the panel to answer. There will be a Q&A session once the panel's member answer their question. And You are most welcome to write your question in the chat box during the event. We are happy to read them out and answer during the Q&A session. We highly recommend the audiences not to mention their real name and identity, especially audiences from Bangladesh, as security is a big concern for Sogi people in Bangladesh. And it's very difficult. Sometimes we don't really understand and realize, especially people who we live in country like United Kingdom or United States, that how lucky we are. If you like compare your life with the Sogi people in South Asia, do you know like Sogi people are being slaughtered before their parents' eyes by the religious extremists? Each and every year, Sogi people are committing suicide because our society, our surrounding are making them to take that decision. Sogi people are forcefully getting married with straight people. Sogi people are being abducted by their own parents just for the sake of the society status and honor. Sogi people are struggling every single moment and every stage in their lives. And all this happening in South Asian countries, especially countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka. And homosexuality still is criminalized in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan by the governments. And this law was developed in 1860 under the British Raj. And we South Asian people still suffering for that law. And our lives became a continuous struggle for every single moment the moment the law was implemented by the British government. Today, we are going to hear the current challenges, barriers the LGBTQI plus community facing and how they are surviving in these circumstances. Now, without delay, I'm going to invite our first two panels from Sri Lanka. It's Satya Basi and Srial Nilanke. If I pronounce your name not correctly, I apologize for that. So, Satya, if you just unmute, and I'd like to ask you two questions. The first question to you is like, how safe Sri Lanka for LGBT plus people? What do you think as a part of like being the community?
Hi everyone, I'm Satya from Sri Lanka. So I'm a trans woman. I'm working for a local organization which is working for national HIV prevention in Sri Lanka. So I think everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. So the first question was how safe is Sri Lanka for LGBT
Yes.
community? I would say comparing to 10 years back, I cannot say that it's safe or not safe. Um, so we'll say if I say not safe, we can point out that there are no incidents reported on LGBT people being killed or beaten, but most cases are unreported or reported on other reasons, such as like, drug dealing or maybe under vagrancy ordinance. And the other thing is Article 365 and 365A are still in the penal code. It's not used strictly for LGBT community, but it's used to harass Soji people. No laws that protect LGBT people from violence or the stigma, discrimination based Soji, because it's not a part of a fundamental right of the Constitution. Um, Many LGBT members face violence from their families. Um, there's no protection available. intimate partner violence is unreported, as reporting can get the victim into more trouble, or no provisions to report such violence. And many face discrimination in education settings and in employment settings, especially transgender people, because of their visibility and there's no law exists to protect them. Lack of social protection, I would say, cyberbullying, and also most of community people migrate to urban cities, and it's hard to find them for rent, and uh, lack of employment issues. Um, and also, if I say safe, um, comparing to older generation, younger generation is much active in social media and doing awareness in their own way. And it became a trend in most of urban areas, but it again creates negative marketing or on YouTubers, between YouTubers. So they create incidents, they individually harass TikTok stars or maybe activists on YouTube. And if I say we achieved something for transgender people during 5 to 6 years, um, because for transgender people, we managed to get the gender recognition certificate, and we have a surgery systems here in Sri Lanka. So it's a kind of a safe for transgender people. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what we get to know, like it's compared to LGBTQI, I mean, gay, lesbian, bisexual people, transgender are more accepted, like
Yes.
also same in Bangladesh as well. And I completely agree with you, especially social media, YouTube. Even if you like see our mainstream media, they never ever represent us like in a proper way. They always like represented us in the media, TV, newspaper, even in a small drama, they will represent us as a part of like very funny character or very silly. We do have like other we they don't represent us positively as well. Yeah, I completely agree. So thanks Satya, thanks for answering this question and sharing the insight. And now I'd like to ask the question to Sriyal. Uh, you there? Can you hear me?
Hi, Mars. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So how do you resist and cope up as a community with some of these barriers you face? We know our life is like by the time we born and we understand our sexuality, we that moment our struggle start from mental struggle, and it's not easy. So if you just tell us how you cope up with those situation. And mm, my second question is for you, how organized the LGBT community in Sri Lanka? Over to you.
Hi. So my name is Shriyal. I am currently working on a Global Fund funded regional grant that is implemented by the Family Planning Association. I'm also someone who's living with HIV, so I do work mostly with PLHIV communities, but also with LGBT plus communities. I've been doing this kind of work for the last 4 to 5 years, roughly. So, and just to start off with, like my representation or sort of expression is from my experience and my work with certain parts of the community. It does not represent the entirety of the community, and how good or bad it is, it differs from person to person and from the subsects of communities that they belong to. However, in a more sort of generalized way of putting it, um, on an individual level, I think communities do still face a lot of struggle in terms of identifying themselves and finding like-minded individuals. Social media has definitely opened that up, especially around platforms like TikTok and Instagram. There are more people sort of reaching out to other queer members. And I think because of social media, there's been a sort of, like you said, um, a subversion of what mainstream media is putting out about communities, and also providing access, one-on-one access to the members of the community. So through that, support systems are being built. They are fairly informal and restricted to smaller communities. However, sorry, man.
Can I
However,
please request everyone to mute their like speaker, please, and you only unmute while you're talking. Thank you.
sorry.
Yes.
So like I was saying, I mean, there is no formal approach because of the legal barriers that are being placed. And what is insidious about it is, like Satya mentioned, that it's not, you don't live in this fear of imminent threat, but you do live in a fear of not being accepted by family and friends, not sort of being able to express yourself in a place of work, not sort of being able to entirely sort of express who you are. And you don't know sometimes, like Satya said, 365A is also used to harass people by police. It is used by landlords to kick people out. We have that sort of systematic oppression that many LGBT people face due to criminalization laws. Thankfully, we don't have arrests that happen, but it doesn't mean the threat is gone or it's not there. The main way we sort of try to cope is by connecting with each other. On another end, we also have seen that a lot more younger, so 15, 16, 17-year-old kids are now able to come out to either their family, and that might be their parents or their aunts or someone within their family system. So they don't need to reach completely outside of that family unit, which is good in one way, and which also means that now we have a community that was kicked out years ago, who do not have that sort of younger generation coming into sort of being a part of that community. So we are navigating this sort of new space, still kind of understanding that it's not the same in a suburban space. It's not, it is much more difficult in rural spaces. So as a community, what we are trying to do is make ourselves as visible as possible so that people have the comfortability to approach us. We are now seeing social media campaigns around being LGBT. The transgender associations are talking much more openly about the transition process and support systems. And I think a group of activists, even within the HIV sector, what they've done is they've managed to get certain policy level conversations going within the HIV prevention program, which is commendable because that now gives us the opportunity to take something that has been sanctioned by the government to further the cause of, to reduce the oppression that is being faced. Addressing your question on how organized the LGBT community is, I think a lot of us within the community who...
You have 1 minute to answer this question. All
Sure.
right.
Very simply put, it's much like anywhere else. I mean, yes, there is disagreements because we are very a vibrant group of people. We kind of we don't like what the other people are telling us what to do, so which sort of applies within the community itself. However, what we see is when there is something that goes wrong, there are definitely a group of people within subsets of groups that come together, that band together, which we've seen over the last couple of years. Regardless of our disagreements on everything else, we come together and we fight for that cause. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Shreyal. And especially I want to note one thing about from your what you have told. Like, yeah, there might be not a lot of arrest or harassment. This incident it doesn't happen, but the fear of we are living with that fear. It's continuously in our mind, in our subconscious mind. So we have to struggle those mental trauma and everything. And thanks for sharing the insight. And now I would like to invite our wonderful LGBTQI plus activist from India, Kanab N. Shagal and Mira Singhania. If I once again, I'm sorry if I pronounce the name um, incorrectly. So I would first will go to Kanav. So my first question to you, the similar one, how safe is India for LGBTQI plus people? We know right now from India, like homosexuality has been decriminalized, which is really, really positive sign, especially for our South Asian countries, and we are hopeful. So that's the first question. And in India, what are the most pressing barrier faced by the LGBTQI community right now? I would prefer if you answer what was like before the decriminalize the law and after. So if you just share your finding.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Kanav and I'm currently a postgraduate student at Azim Premji University, Bangalore. So India is a very diverse country, right? You've got Kashmir in the north, you've got Kanyakumari in the south, you've got the Seven Sisters in the east, Gujarat in the west, and you've got various other states. We have various languages, various religions, etc. So to answer this question, how safe is the LGBT community in India is not very easy because it depends on your social location. But if I had to give a short answer, I'd say not very safe. So there's a very interesting article by Vikas Pandey, which was published by the BBC, which talks about the lives of LGBTQI plus people in rural India. And this was after Section 377 had been scrapped. And what this journalist found was that even though the law had changed, the lives of queer people in rural India didn't change very much. And the reason they said that was because more than the police, more than the courts, more than the law, it was society that was tormenting them. Right. So there were stories of closeted lesbian women in Uttar Pradesh. There was a story of a closeted gay man in Haryana and another transgender individual in Bihar who spoke about how they found it very difficult to cope with their sexuality and found it very difficult to talk to people about their gender identity as well. So I think this question of how safe people are really depends on where you're located, what your caste background is, because India is organized on caste, what your class status is, and how many resources you have. So if you live in small towns, if you live in peri-urban areas, if you live in very remote areas, it'll be very difficult for you to even connect with other queer people. And in India, you do have some, you do see some queer people flocking around places like South Delhi, South Mumbai. You have gay parties, you have huge pride parades in these areas. And in fact, ever since 377 was scrapped, these queer mobilization in these bigger cities actually improved. There has been a little bit more television coverage, and I wrote an article for Report Out as well, where I mentioned a few Bollywood movies were also made. But what I feel is that this is restricted to a very limited group of people. For most Indians, especially most Indians living in rural areas, not very much has changed. And I urge more people to read this article because it's really covers this very well. And I'm currently in Kolkata. And just a few weeks ago, there was a case of alleged sexual harassment by a cop on a effeminate man. I presume he identifies as homosexual. And these instances of violence on queer people, not just on gay people, but also on trans people, still continues even today. And justice is extremely difficult it's very uncommon actually for queer individuals to access justice easily. And a good example of this is the transgender bill, which was passed to protect transgender people, but it is the trans community coming out and saying, no, the bill is problematic and there are many problems with it. India also does not have an anti-discrimination code. So if you are a queer individual and you want to, I don't know, if you want to look for a job, if you want to rent an apartment, you can be discriminated against, and there is no national level law that can protect you. So there are all of these issues at the moment, and that is what I would say the state of safety for queer people is at the moment. Um, would you like me to also talk about the pressing barriers faced by LGBTQI people?
Yes, please. And you have 1 minute.
Right. So there are many pressing barriers, but if I would just list three, the first would be the fact that there is very little vernacularization of LGBTQI identities and language. So what I mean by that is there a word in Marathi for lesbian? Is there a word in Gujarati for bisexual? And the answer is no, and that is important. Number two is that we need sex and sexuality education in our country. The national education policy was released recently, but there is no mention of the word sex anywhere in that document. And finally, I would say we need more mobilization and more representation, especially in politics, in media. We need openly queer people in journalism. We need openly queer politicians. We don't have too many of them. And unfortunately, with COVID, mobilizing has now become even harder, right? And there's a digital divide in our country. Not everyone has access to the internet, right? Not everyone has access to webinars like this. So mobilization is also important. Unfortunately, it's taken a backseat because of COVID, and I hope things improve in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Kanab. And especially I want to like point out one thing that like though homosexuality is like decriminalized in India, and I completely agree with you that it really doesn't make any difference in the rural area, because it's even those people doesn't know this law exists. Same thing in Bangladesh as well. They suffer most from their brother, family, parents, and the surrounding, the society hatred, and completely, and only few people who have like sort of like elite class lives in South Delhi, they have this class barrier and they can really enjoy the freedom. Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate for sharing all this insight with us. And my question now is to Mira Singhania. Mira, did I spell your name correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So
It's okay.
my first question to you, how do you resist cope up as a community with some of the barrier you face? I know even the educated family, they don't like, they will accept you like brother. They'll at the end of the day, they'll say, oh, you are my brother. It doesn't really matter. We love you, but they accept you as a brother or sister. They don't accept you as a gay or lesbian or transgender brother. So we do face a lot of challenges. So if you just tell us how do you cope up with any problem you face? And the second question to you, how organized the LGBT community in India? Over to you, Mira.
Right. Hi. My name is Meera Singhania Rehani. I am 21 years old. I am studying at Ambedkar University, Delhi. I'm pursuing sociology honors over there. I'm currently pursuing my undergrad there. So, first of all, I would thank Kanav because he has given out some really prominent points. And I would say that, again, I would bring that point out. Your social location is a very, very prominent point as far as India is concerned, especially given the current political climate, given the kind of governance we are under, the kind of fascist regime I would say we are all under, where our religion, our caste, our class, all of these things play a very prominent role as far as our social identity is concerned. So I would say that even being a binary trans woman, I feel I am extremely, extremely privileged given that I'm Hindu, given that I come from an upper class, given that I come from an upper caste, given that I live in an urban setting. So that's there. We all know what happened in Kashmir last year, abrogation of Article 370. So if you think about the condition of the transgender population over there in Kashmir during COVID, the kind of social ostracization that the hijra crowd is facing, or the sex workers, the trans sex workers are facing economically, socially, on all kinds of frontiers, or for that matter, the Dalit trans people or Dalit women are facing in general in India. I think that's very important to point out, given the entire hygiene, purity narrative that COVID is trying to pull, given how it's become difficult for marginalized people to survive along with this pandemic. So I would say that personally for me, I seek mental health therapy. I go for psychotherapy. So that really helps out for me as a person who can afford therapy. But also we need to understand, we need to realize that therapy is really, really elite. It's really, really exclusionary given the kind of reach it has to people. So I feel at a very basic fundamental level, the very feeling of a community is very, very important in order to survive, because the because our traditional family structures have been oppressive for queer people in general all over the world, historically speaking. So we realize the importance of a community. And what's interesting is that during COVID, we don't have that. We are kind of torn apart from our community, from our safe spaces because of COVID, because we are kind of restrained in these four walls, right? So I think that is a challenge that we need to navigate, that we need to overcome, where social media comes in, where digitalism comes in, where all of these things comes in. And again, it's a challenge for all those people who do not have the privilege to access internet, who do not have the privilege to access social media. So that's there. As far as the organized, as far as the you will say how organized LGBTQ community is there in India, I would honestly say that, like, it's obviously LGBTQ. It's not a monolithic term, right? We need to realize that even within LGBTQIA, we have intersex, we have asexuals, we have agender, we have an entire spectrum. We have non-binary people out there. We have different kinds of non-binary people out there who are there, and they are never represented in the mainstream narrative. The kind of the way pop culture, the way Bollywood, Hollywood, or any kind of culture kind of dominates the LGBTQ discourses. That is also something that we need to think about in terms of representation. Whether I would want a cis man to play a
Mia,
trans
you have
role in a
40
movie.
seconds. You have 40 seconds more to say.
I'm sorry. I guess I just.
No problem at all.
Yeah. So I think I was. I think I'm done.
Excited. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, well said, and especially you're lucky, privileged to have the mental sick assistance. Like country like Bangladesh, it's difficult to find it, but I know few our like community people, they do organize this sort of like mental support. They talk to therapy, but those are not really professional. Just to help, there is something there is like at least something to do for the community. Yeah. So yeah, thanks Amira for sharing your um, thought finding. And now I would like to ask the question to my favorite country, Bangladesh. Yes, I'm from Bangladesh. I miss Bangladesh a lot. That's my beloved country. So we have two wonderful LGBTQI plus activists. One, Prohor, they is from Bangladesh, and we have got Tasnuba. Tasnuba born and brought up in Bangladesh, then moved to London and seek asylum here. So first of all, I would like to ask the question to Prohor. Mm, how safe is Bangladesh for LGBTQI plus people? Actually, in terms of Bangladesh, it should be, the question should be how unsafe is Bangladesh, not how safe. There is no safety. Anyway, I'll leave the question to you to answer. And in Bangladesh, what are the most pressing barrier faced by the LGBTQ community right now? Over to you, Prohor. Are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead,
Thank you,
please.
Mazhar Bhai, for giving me the floor. And I would also like to thank everybody who's here today. Some really important points has been raised in terms of South Asian queer politics, and I will add mine to it. To answer your first question, Mazhar Bhai, it is actually very unsafe right now. It has been unsafe for quite some time, especially for those who don't know that our queer history is standing on a very bloody incident. Activists here have been killed by Islamists, and ever since then, queer lives have been under immense threat. So I would like to point out some aspects regarding which the queer community is unsafe. One is there's no legal protection for queer people. Now, when I say queer, which population am I talking about? So queers can be divided generally into various categories. Of course, we know about the LGBTQI, I mean, all those labels. But then we have the Hijra population here, who are basically a very, very old community that goes back to pre-colonial times. There are kotis here, which means effeminate men. And Hijra recently got some sort of national recognition from the country, given that now they can have their own passports, which means now they have a right to nationality and all of that. And they can also get access to legal aid and social services. Even like, can you imagine, even maybe a decade ago, they didn't have those, they didn't have the same equal facilities and rights that a normal citizen did. But they do have that now, which in itself is a very violent process. And I will explain that in a bit. But I think the real invisible population of the queer folks would be people who don't or are not a part of the Hijra community, the regular gay, lesbian, bisexual, and trans people. So the fact that their existence is not acknowledged neither by the state nor by society is what's creating this unsafe bubble in which they're living. Us not recognizing and not being able to give them proper access to healthcare, proper access to mental health facilities, social services, and all of that is consistently making them live lives that is vulnerable and on the edge. And when I'm talking about violence of the Hijra people, I'm saying that even when they are going to the passport offices to get their national ID and whatnot, they're being medically checked by doctors to see what they're biologically born with as organs. And it's a violent process that they're been taking through by the state. Why is it unsafe? It is unsafe because the queer people are still criminalized in our country. And when I say queer, I don't mean the Hijras, but the other segment that I mentioned. You will find out that there are cases, or maybe one particular case that comes to mind. I don't want to name names, but two AFAB folks, and by that I mean assigned female at birth folks, were caught sort of being in a relationship, and then their families denounced it, and they were being arrested by the police, and a lot of harassment happened. So all of that has led to our queer kin absolutely marginalized and cornered. There is no human rights for queer people here. A lot of the organizing and the so-called activism, I don't like being associated with the word activist because we don't really get to do a lot of field activism here in Bangladesh. We get to write a lot, of course, but we don't get to do, open or public activism per se. So a lot of the organizing that we're doing, or whatever activism that we're channeling within the community, is very, very secret. And it is very, like, I personally believe it's very important to involve allies in this politics, but we're not being able to do that because it is not safe to out to even allies in our country. So that is answering your first question, Machavi. Could you repeat the second question, please?
Yes, sure, definitely. It was like, just give me a second. In Bangladesh, what are the most pressing barrier faced by the LGBT community right now? I think you already have covered that one, the like security issue, and but
Yeah,
still go
but
ahead. Yeah,
right, there is something specific that I would like to
yeah,
mention as an answer
sure,
to that
sure.
question. So there is a section 377 that says that, the article 370 that says that, you know, same sex is criminalized, and it's not a legal thing to do, and all of that.
Yeah,
Sorry, was I cut off for a second? I got a
yeah,
call.
for 2 seconds maybe.
Okay, sorry.
Carry on, no problem.
So under that article, all activities that involves queer sex is decriminalized. There are details to that, but I don't think I need to mention that. What's important to notice here is that you will see a lot of law enforcement agencies, or a lot of law enforcers, do not even know that this article exists, or that even if it does, what it entails, right? So you will see a lot of activists who live abroad saying that this article is a major barrier to queer lives here, but in practical sense, it's not. What is rather a more potential threat to not just queer folks, but any activists who are working day and night for human rights and related issues, the biggest barrier for them currently is the DSA, which is the Digital Security Act.
Security Act, exactly.
Right. So there are a lot of folks, even during this pandemic, and it's so easy to, you know, get access to people's home locations, because we're all confined in our private spaces, right? So you will see that a lot of recent news have come up, even in the international media. Al Jazeera has covered it. Activists were just taken away from their homes. They were picked up by men in white clothes who did not reveal their identities. And they just came, they picked up activists, put them behind bars for apparent reasons, like putting up a status against, say, the prime minister, or putting up a status that goes against the image of our nation, whatever that is. So the prevalence of such fascist government in our country is what's posing threat to all lives, not just queer lives. That would be answering the second question. Thank you.
Thank you, and I completely agree with you, especially like yeah, even like for normal people, they don't have the human rights in Bangladesh. There is no human rights, honestly speaking, and especially the queer activism. It's like we went back almost like 20 years back, and everything happened in underground, because what happened back in like 2016 April, after murdering two our like pioneer LGBT activist from Bangladesh. After that, every single movement,
Right.
everyone, especially who is related
People who were
with,
close to
yeah,
them, yeah, or the
exact close to
organization
them,
that they were
or
involved with.
the even the new generation, they have this
Yes.
fear in their mind. They don't want to, they have this like willpower. They want to work for the LGBT community, but
Right.
there is a
Can
big,
I also add a
yeah,
little bit to
sure,
that? I don't know how much time I've left.
no,
There's
no,
been a
no problem.
recent incident where queer activists living in the West, I don't want to mention which country or
Yeah,
mention any names, they've been outing a teen who has been sort of forced into some kind of rehabilitation that we got to find out from the teen's friends, right? So the friends reached out to those activists, and they're going left and right, sharing her details publicly, and not like, even when activists here denounced it and requested him to put those down, he wouldn't comply to it. So even within the community, there are activists who are in privileged positions for whom being out is just any normal thing, would take the advantage and think that they're doing some heroic act by outing people. And they don't
Yeah,
realize that
yeah.
in a country like Bangladesh, where Islamists are everywhere, and whatever Islamic ideology that the state is holding is so
Yeah,
it's
I
so all encompassing that
completely agree with you. We
it's
can
all
support them.
encompassing, and they
Like we
can
have to think about the security first for the community
absolutely.
and for the people who I am supporting. I also think about that person. I don't want to like bring him or her in front of the world. So yeah,
Right.
we appreciate that like people wants to help, but we just need to follow a strategy so that like it doesn't hamper the community or the family or whatever. I thank you, Prohar, for you sharing all this informative and insightful information. Now I'd like to ask a question um, to Tasnuba. Tasnuba, are you there? Hello?
Yes, Mazhar bhai, can you hear me? I was
Yes,
actually having trouble getting
we can
connected.
hear you very loud and clear.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
first question to you, how do you resist and cope up as a community with some of the barrier you face both in Bangladesh and London? I would say like I particularly mention London because I have seen in the like within the Bangladeshi community, I found some people who are like more backward and compared to Bangladesh. So their parents, they moved to London long back ago, but still those hatred, they're like cultivating it through their generation. There is a lot of work need to be done in London in the British Bangladeshi community. So you are part of both. So would you mind answering that question? And the second question to you, how organized the LGBT community in Bangladesh? I think as you here in London, uh, mm, Prohor might help you out. First of all, answer the question. And Prohor, if you think he needs to add anything for the second question, feel free to add it. Okay. So
All right.
Tasnuba, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mazhar bhai. First of all, thanks a lot for having me here today. It's a great privilege. Shall I just introduce myself quickly if it's okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm Tashnuva. I'm from Bangladesh, and I did come here years ago, and then I had to face quite a lot of difficulty from Bangladeshi community to be able to process the asylum because the person who was processing was a Muslim, was from Bangladeshi community, and you have no idea. Like I cannot even put them in words, the kind of abuse, the kind of words that I had to hear. The person lives here, has a family, has a child. Like you've already mentioned, like the families who already came here, even if they come here about 10, 15 years ago, there's no change in the mentality. Even if the people who came about, like they probably know some sort of a situation, whatever is going through in our country, in the madrasas, in the queer communities, or whichever the way you can we can mention it. They just don't want to put any thoughts towards it. No, I can't even explain. So there are families who has been living here for years. Maybe if they came in the 40s, they came in their 50s. They grow up in a way like I should not be mentioning religious so much because there are a lot of religious people who are very nice and very acceptable. But then most community and the families, they grow up with the idea that we are not born normal, we are not acceptable, how we operate is never going to get anywhere, and it's dangerous for us, and we should always stay away from it, etc., etc., etc. Even in this country, I have to go to certain programs because I'm Bangladeshi. I am deeply connected to my culture. I can't stay away from it. So I go to my culture. I go to my communities, and then I still have to hide myself. I cannot talk about it. I am not open. I am not open about my sexuality. It's not just possible. Once they know the face, once they know me, it will become a big issue among the whole Bangladeshi community. So our Prohor, our other she doesn't want to call herself activist, but Prohor has already mentioned what it is in Bangladesh. So a piece of Bangladesh is basically in England. So there's no, only because we have a better law enforcement, only because we have our rights secured, that's the only reason we are safe here. Otherwise, in that piece of Bangladesh, we will not be safe. It would be exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Mazhar, are you here?
Hear me now? Sorry.
Sorry, I probably was cut out for a second because suddenly the sound was just gone. Like I
Yeah.
was talking, but then I couldn't hear my own voice. Sorry.
Okay. No, I was telling like I completely agree with you because like it seems like the London here, the Bangladeshi society are same as Bangladesh. There is no difference. It just here we are like free country, but uh, uh, one if any children who is like LGBTQI plus, they will go through the same mental trauma and like hatred from their family, society surrounding here in London as well. Yeah, I completely agree. And Tasnuba, would you mind quickly answer your second question? How organized the Bangladeshi LGBTQ plus community?
I wouldn't quite say that we are very good organized, very well organized in Bangladesh. First of all, we are not open about it. We are not able to make seminars. We are not able to announce that we are going to have such workshops going on. It's all underground. And to be honest, the organizations are even if they have even if they're willing to do it so willing to do so much so better, they are not being able to do it because constitutionally or even like I, how to say it, say we are not able to come out openly with our plans, what we want to do and how and what are the best things possible to take things forward, because as soon as somebody gets to know about it, it will just be the end of it and the lives will be in risk. So it's totally underground at the moment, and they need a lot of support from abroad.
Yeah.
They need a lot of support.
Thank you. Prohor, do you want to like add anything with this question? How organized the Bangladeshi LGBT community is?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of the organizing work that we have to do has to be very, quiet and secret and underground. And we're having to use all these apps that doesn't, that has
Yeah.
encrypted messaging and whatnot. So that's there. But there are also these queer organizations or queer-led spaces that have their own politics. And I wouldn't say that their politics are always on the same page, right? Which I don't think is something that you should be expecting all the
Yeah.
time to happen. But that is also something that divides organizers here. Also, there are activists who think, or there are organizations whose ideology is rooted in coming out as liberation of queer people. And then there are activists and queer folks who think that, if we just keep organizing within the community, because there's so much to deal with, there's mental health
True.
trauma coming from families, there is little access to, say, even regular things like dating and places to hang out as queer people. All of that taken into account, we should be organizing within the community. There are those organizations, and they don't necessarily think that coming out is as much necessary. So these are some ideologies that divide organizing here. That's just to
Exactly.
give one
I
example.
completely agree with
And I
you.
would,
And
with everybody, all the guests being here, I would urge you to read Shuddha Shor's latest issue, where a lot of Bangladeshi folks have written on queer issues, specifically rooted in Bangladesh. I can share the link here so that all of you
sure,
can take a look.
definitely, please do share. And I
Right.
completely agree with
However, can
you.
I add one more thing if it's
Yeah,
possible?
sure, sure.
So basically, right now I am a part of an LGBT Q community organization in Bangladesh. So like Prohor have already mentioned, I thought about before mentioning it, but it's very good that she brought it
Yeah.
out. So yes, one organization goes ahead with one issue, the other organizations come forward to threaten them, to say that you are putting our lives into threat, and none of them are able to go forward with the agendas, with the issues or things that they want to resolve. So yes, politics do exist, and
Yes. Yeah, like at the same time, I would say like all the like Bangladeshi activists, like they're very young. We hardly have any like training or anything, but we are doing good. We are getting mature. We are having a good understanding with each other. So just like we have to go with the flow and get more mature and work together, help each other. Yeah, that's all. So my last question to all the panelists, and you will have 40 seconds. I can't give you like more time to answer the question. So we people like who left the country, it doesn't mean that we are out of our community, because we born and brought up in that country, and our uh, memories, everything, like the passion is there. So we want to be part of the community, and if other international organizations, they want to support you. So practically, how do you think like people who live outside your own country and help you practically? So that's the common question to everyone. So who wants to start fast answering? Should I just give it to the open floor, and one after all the panel you just answer?
Can
So
I
who?
answer you this question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my name is Sayyida Sarwat Fatima, and I'm Muslim Pakistani lesbian.
Oh.
And like once you leave the country, you know what happened. Like your heart lives in that country, and you physically you are in some other country, isn't it?
Yes.
Physically, I'm here in UK, but my heart, mentally, spiritually, I'm still living in back home Pakistan, where nobody was accepted me, where I struggled a lot, where people attempt rape on me, where they kicked me out, where I had to spend the whole night in under the sky because of my sexual orientation, but still my heart lives in that country.
Saida, can I just stop you for a second? I do really apologize, because somehow I didn't ask you the question. I somehow
Okay.
missed you. So that was my fault. I'm really sorry. So, but yeah, Saida is like another LGBTQ plus activist from Pakistan. And I just want to ask you your question, two question, like, yeah, the first one is how do you resist and cope up as a community with some of the barrier you faced? And second question for Saida, it's how organized the LGBT community in Pakistan?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me here, and I'm not going to take too much time. My name is Sayyida Surat.
You're given 6 minutes. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, my name is Sayyida Sarwat Fatima, and I born and bred in Pakistan. I came UK around 10 years back, and yeah, actually, if the state is holding the Islamic law, it means that it's not actually the safe place for all. And if you are talking about LGBTQI rights, so they don't have rights for straight people either. And yeah, like once my family, they came to know about my sexual orientation, they pushed me from the stairs and I lost front 4 teeth. And they pressurized my partner to got married, and she got married, but she's not living happily there. And yeah, like once my supervisor, he came to know about my sexual orientation, he just refused to work with me. So, you know, like overall with my story, you can analyze
Yeah,
how the situations for LGBTQI people in Pakistan. If
that's
the
really
country is
sad,
Islamic,
horrible.
yeah, the even, you know, like I have done half of my PhD, but my supervisor, he just refused to work with me. And the chemistry in PhD, it was really hard. And yeah, like he refused. And he also told my university supervisor, like the hostel supervisor, that she is not safe. She is not a safe person for other girls. And my hostel supervisor, she asked me to leave the hostel premises. And even I didn't have any family. My parents died when I was very young, and I didn't have any sibling. I had to spend the whole night under the sky because I didn't have any place to go. I rang to my uncle. I was just begging, just let me stay at your place for a few days and I'll leave your premises as soon as possible once I'll get any safe place to go. Yeah, and yeah, I came UK with the help of my friends. I was teaching there and I didn't show my sexual orientation where I was teaching. And I sold all the ornaments of my mom and everything, and I just came to UK. I did my master's from here. I got the work permit, and once the boss, he is Pakistani like us, like me, and once he came to know about my sexual orientation, he just asked me, he misused me. He used me as a modern slave. He raped me. I reported this to the police, but I didn't.
Is there anyone like whose speaker is unmute? Fatima, are you there? Did you?
Yes, I am. I am
Okay,
sorry.
okay. Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
and yeah, like he asked me, like he misused me. I reported this to the police, but I didn't have any proof, and he knew it that I can't go back to Pakistan because of my sexual orientation. He used to taunt about my skirts. He used to describe my body shape. He used to taunt me about my looks. Even he found me in LGBTQI pub in Bromley South in London. He ruined my career. Even I did 2 masters, but you know, like after that trauma, I forgot to speak. Still, I struggle to speak many things. Still,
Um,
I'm keep forgetting the grammar, punctuations of Urdu, English, everything. And I just got my asylum done 4 or 5 months ago. And I just realized, no, I'm not going to give up. I need to do something for my community. Even, you know, like even I struggle because of my sexual orientation, but still I'm not racist. I just want to work for all human beings, is not particular for any community, because gay rights are human rights. So I need to work on human rights. It means that indirectly I'm working, or directly I'm working for human rights as well, gay rights as
yeah,
well.
you're
So
you're.
yeah, like you can analyze the whole situation, that how supporting environment in
This is
is there.
so heartbreaking, and we're really sorry and empathize. Like what you have went through, just like no, like it's completely inhuman, and we are so sorry. But pure survivor, we all are survivor. You are an example. Be proud of yourself. You have went through all this, but you stand stood. You are a hero. Like honestly, like you should be always feel proud. You'll be like in times like you'll be example. People will follow you. Thank you so much for sharing your stories.
No problem at all, and thank you very much for having me here.
You're welcome, and I really apologize. Somehow I did miss you to ask the
No,
question.
that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's fine. No problem at all. Like
Yeah, so
I just interfered myself.
no problem at all. We are running out of time. At the very beginning, we told that like it's a 1 hour event, and we might increase the time 10 to 15 minutes. So we now can you just like 20 seconds, you can just tell what support
Maz,
other people can do.
sorry, Maz, can I
Yeah,
quickly interrupt and
yeah,
just
sure,
to
sure.
bring in? Can we bring in Salman here, please, if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay? Thank you.
It's in the waiting list. Let me check. I don't see him in the waiting list.
I'm here. You here? See me?
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would like to share a little bit about
Sure,
like
sure,
the
sure. Please.
LGBT human rights situation in Pakistan, for example. A little bit about myself, which I don't know, I should go on and on about that. I've been organizing with human rights, with intersectionality of the LGBT cause also for like 5 years, more than that. I would also like, and it's I wish I had bragging rights for it. I would be, I was one of the only openly openly gay journalists, also an activist. So the thing is, in Pakistan, when we ask, for example, what is the how safe the country is, it's quite a vague of a question, because the thing is, it is for some who live in a sheltered environment, who are protected by their class privilege. But overall, when it comes to the majority, also when it comes to, for example, queer issues, especially, the legality of our existence is you know, there's no room for even acknowledging queer existence, lesbian, gays, for example, because that's how the society has unfortunately been pushed towards years of Islamization. In particular, for example, what we see even now, that in Pakistan particularly, queer voices are erased. They're not highlighted. They're not portrayed in the best way in the media. Also, for example, I've worked in media extensively, and I know how difficult it is, even in English language spaces, where fairly people are coming from decent education from, you know, American universities and UK universities. You know, they have a lot of regressive notions also about LGBT community, particularly being homosexual, for example, which is definitely considered as something that is against religion. So Pakistan has made considerable, you would say, strides towards recognizing its transgender community. My sibling is a transgender activist, a known one. So we have had years of experience and work on our own, with little or no support, of course, from our own community. Of course, our own people, you know, abuse us, deny us, and censor us, and you know, distance from us. You know, all my relatively stable, you know, family abroad, they have all distanced themselves. You know, I've had to, you know, sort an exile in US now, but it's the life here, even in West, for example. I would be critical about that also. Even in West, for example, some of us who are being forced out of our countries for being LGBT, we come with, you know, it comes with the additional challenges also because of our race, because of our socioeconomic status. Many of the Western countries and many of the folks, many of the LGBT activists, even in the West, are not aware or equipped even to go ahead and assist us. So yeah, in Pakistan, for example, what we see in the current situation also, there is, despite a lot of work that has been done for trans people in empowerment, in recognizing their legal existence, which has been going on for certain decades. We see that in 2009, legally they were recognized, national identity cards and many others services were being opened up. In 2008, the Transgender Protection Bill was passed, which is quite progressive on paper at least. But still, trans people also face a lot of violence from their families, from the community, a lot of discrimination. Their existence is acknowledged, but then again, it's on the it's ostracized also. The whole community, and they're marginalized. And most of the trans community live in abject poverty. So we have a status situation in which we see deliberately it's not only the masses, it's also the educated elite, that they're not able to portray us in the best of way. Recently, there was a web series also that was actually released in India. It's called like Witches Chudals. It's a feminist series, beautiful depiction of feminist character and feminist. But then again, the forced inclusion of LGBT characters, which was first, for example, from a Pakistani perspective, it was the first. It hadn't done justice, for example. Quite dehumanizing elements were portrayed in a lot of characters, for example. And though there was certain acknowledgement of same-sex, for example, lesbian love affair, trans character was included, but then again, a closeted gay man was shown to be, slaughtered by his wife because, the wife discovered him cheating on her. So it's a weird conception of like how in Pakistan, LGBT folks are portrayed. We recently have seen also, just for example, briefly highlight that issue, that there's a trans man also, and trans men are recognized legally speaking. But then again, you have a state, which is a fascist state, by the way. You have a state that then went on and questioned that the gender identity of this individual, and then they were accused of being same-sex couples, and they were repeatedly being harassed to come in the courts, and then they had to be an absconder, and a criminal case was launched, because that's the situation. Like, people do fear for their lives a lot, and it's the societal perception also of how LGBT people are perceived, like how their existence is erased also and threatened. And even in online spaces, we see that, for example, my transition also, for example, being active, it was quite accidental, right? I started from online spaces, which weren't so inclusive, which even in online spaces, people don't come out because they fear that they would be discovered by their family, they would just be discovered by their, peers, and workplace harassment also, for example, I faced a lot, which is one of the reasons also why I left a work as a journalist. To be in US also isn't like, being an at-risk migrant, a refugee, and asylum seeker is we're treated very good, especially in the present administration of Trump. So I would also like highlight a little bit of what had happened recently. For example, a known scientist from Pakistani origin, she has been chosen as the dean of MIT here in Mass. I live in Massachusetts, and I'm pretty proud of my state. But at the same time, how the media covered it in Pakistan was Pakistani-born. Her name is Nargis Malwala. Pakistani-born Nargis Malwala. She's the new dean of MIT. She was celebrated as from Pakistan, of course, a scientist and a woman for her womanhood, of course. But then again, her lesbian sexuality and even her religion as a Parsi woman was erased from a lot of English language newspapers. So some did acknowledge her Parsi religion, but most and entirety of many, even the leading newspaper that had established since the beginning of the country, Dawn, it posted the editorial that it might have not been possible for her if she would be in Pakistan due to her religion, which is somewhat untrue. The Parsi community is quite affluent, and they don't engage in politics, and they are just stick to their business and everything. And there's the So, but her lesbian identity was deliberately erased. So this is the situation of people knowingly, purposefully educated people suppose. We have a prime minister who went to Oxford, by the way, who I don't agree on so many levels, and at the same time was destroying the country, in my view. So, so the how religion is enforced, how we see that there are inequalities that exist in the country and beyond our diaspora also, it's the same. Even in the diasporic communities, for example, even in US, for example, I would not hang around or stick around. I'm not demonizing or like, portraying Pakistanis as very like, backward people, but our subject, our existence, we have a long way to go. And even what we see, for example, in 73 years that we have gained independence from the British, Pakistan has not even produced openly queer poets and writers and academics and scholars. So that is the state of affairs in Pakistan.
Salman, I'm
And
sorry to interrupt you. If you just
and
make
that
it a
was
bit
my end.
shorter. Yeah.
That was my end. Yeah, a lot to say, I think. Yeah, but thank you.
No, thank you, and I sincerely apologize that I
Oh, it's fine. It happens.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the open question, if you start, Salman, first, like how the people who live abroad can help the community, I mean the Pakistani LGBTQI plus community, how report out like organization or other LGBT community can help. So if you just give a short answer, that would be really beautiful.
Well, I will keep it short. The thing is, but at the same time, I'm a bit critical about how the Global North and Global South organizations function. There are some established Global North organizations who do fund certain established trans organizations and HIV organizations, and then under the pretext they hope to push forward for equality. But then again, it's you have to understand that what Pakistan needs is it's a ground it's a groundwork, more grassroots organizers and activists. People from abroad can never help anyone unless and until there are people on the ground also in Pakistan. For example, I started as a grassroots activist. It's not like I'm going to Oxford or Harvard and then coming back. Oh, I will change the country and everything, because I was living there. I knew I'm not supposed to leave the country. But the point is that you have to, even in abroad, if people are there, if they sincerely want change, empower grassroots activists who focus on intersectionality. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because like people sitting here, living here, they don't know the like pain or the social culture or the situation we went through. So it's like just empower those people and help them, empowering them. Yeah. So same question to Saida. Would you please answer it in a very short manner?
I'm really sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, the people who live like you or like international organization like human rights organization report out, who like outside of Pakistan, um, how they can help the community, LGBTQI plus community.
Well, that's all about awareness. Just spread awareness, and education. The more educated we are, the more aware we are, the less racist we are. The more we will accept the differences. That's all about awareness and education. That's it. And this is all we can do.
Yep, I completely agree. Like only the education can remove all the barrier, because those hatred and everything, like it's you when you are like children, you born and brought up in a family, it's surrounded by those misconcept and everything. So it only can be removed through education. I completely agree with you. Um, can you, from Bangladesh team, both, can you please answer the question? How like people live abroad, they can help the Bangladeshi LGBT community, like practically. Thus, you can start, then just hand over to Proho.
Are you able to listen to me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, great.
Make it
Okay.
very short.
Sure. The kind of trainings and workshops available here, we should take a note of the lessons and the kind of things we need to take care of. Especially in Bangladesh, we need to be very careful because our lives are in threat. But internally, how we can organize and how we can spread awareness and educate about some sort of changes and improvements we can bring, and that's what we can do, and we should be putting our mind more towards.
Okay, thank you. Prohor, are you there?
Yeah, Mazhar, could you please just quickly repeat the question for me?
Like people who are in outside of Bangladesh,
Oh, right. Sorry, I
how
forgot
they
that
can
too.
like help the
Yeah,
community.
well, I think it's important for them to really understand that one is to step out of their privileges, because they are definitely in privileged positions living abroad, getting all the access to resources that queer folks that here don't. And at the same time, they have to understand that whatever activism or whatever intellectual work they're doing surrounding the community here has to directly benefit the community here. For example, if I point out that, queer people who are Bangladeshi in academia are probably writing journals and articles and publishing papers and whatnot, if that does not reach out to queer folks here explicitly, or even if it has an implicit impact, that is fine too. But the kinds of work that you're doing as a queer activist abroad, being a Deshi person, it has to impact the lives of people here somehow. Your activities cannot be just saying, yeah, I want queer rights, and that then not
Yeah,
doing anything for the
it just
community.
not the like activists who are living abroad. It also like other international human rights organization, like practically how can help the
Right, definitely. They need to understand the
yeah,
intersectional issues that plays into being a brown, queer, like say a trans non-binary person, right? So
yeah,
what are like there's visibility issues, but at the same time there are security issues. And then the money that they're channeling, like a lot of international organizations are channeling money to local organizations to work with queer folks, but then you will find that there are people who work for said organizations, and maybe they don't pay their queer employees as much. So there is that sort of discrimination going on, and I would like to question such international bodies and entities as to what they're doing to emancipate queer folks here financially and in other social ways, right?
yeah. Thank you. Mira, would you mind answering the question? Do you want me to repeat the question, or you are okay?
No, I'm fine. So
Thank
I
you.
have been reading a lot on transnational feminism. So what I would say is that there is obviously a need for this kind of solidarity from all fronts globally, where the discourse is not only dominated by Western feminists or Western narratives by the global north, where our issues, our specificities when it comes to our cultural background, what we are facing on ground, that is something that that at the very foundational fundamental level needs to be acknowledged. There should be adequate research
Yep.
from from outside, so that funds can be used, so that there can be adequate mobilization, so that it can be executed accordingly.
Yep.
That's what I can.
Thank you. And unfortunately, from Sri Lanka panelists, they had other prior event to join, so they left and they say thank to us. And Kana, are you there? I don't think so. So now, if any of our audience have any question, just or want to share anything, feel free to like unmute yourself and ask the question to our panelist or I'm trying to check the inbox and see if there is any question. I still haven't found any question, but one thing I would want to add in terms of like people who are outside the country, how they can help the LGBT community. I think the bridge between the local and international LGBT community, people who like really abroad, they can like make a bridge, a connection with the international LGBT community or the organization, like with the local organization, rather than like go there and tell them do it or that. Support them, empower them, and when especially like when the local government see this organization like is connected with the human rights organization, they sort of like even the government thinks twice to do something. So yeah, but I believe like creating network and making a bridge in like local and international organization that might we help like this network, access to this network that. So we sort of like came up at the end of the event. Now I would like to request, yeah, we got a question. Yes, please.
I just have a question. My name is Stevo. I'm from ReportOUT. I'm from the media team. First, I want to thank all the guests because your information, your intake is really important for us. And of course, we're not from your country, so that's why we're just trying to help out and to educate people. And your intake, your stories are really important. That's why we're trying to get you to tell your stories, because as outsiders, for us it's like for other people who are gonna be in touch with the ReportOUT and everything we're gonna come up with, it's really important to have your point of view, because you are the people who are living, who live there, and you know about it. And it's really important to understand that there are a lot of people who don't know what is the situation, and that's why it's really important for us to have your intake, your stories. And please feel free to get in touch with us, and we get the word out, and we'll try to help you and get a better situation as much as we can. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, guys.
You're most welcome. So now I'd like to request the chair of ReportOUT, Drew Dalton. Dr. Drew Dalton, recently he has like successfully completed his PhD. A big congratulations to Dr. Dalton to give a note of thanks and end the event.
I just want to say thank you very much to everybody for this, to the speakers most of all, for giving your time and your effort. This is the first time we've done a Zoom event like this, so there's inevitably teething problems. So apologies it went on a little longer than we planned, but I really appreciate you all coming here. And a huge thanks to Maz for organizing this, and to Donna, our volunteer, who helped out in the background and amongst all of this, running around, trying to organize everybody. Do sign up to our mailing list. This is the first, we hope, of many things that we can do, and we want everyone to be as active as possible, and look forward to seeing you at events in the future. So thank you to everybody for being part of this. This makes such a huge difference. So thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a lovely day, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.